How do you steal tens of millions in gold from one of the busiest airports in North America, using nothing but a piece of paper? Toronto, Canada. April 17, 2023. A cargo plane landed at Toronto Pearson International Airport. Inside the aircraft was a small metal container, less than half a square meter in size. But inside that container were hundreds of gold bars, along with millions in foreign currency, together worth more than 20 million Canadian dollars. The shipment had been carefully arranged, handled by Brinks, Switzerland, transported by Air Canada, and destined for secure delivery inside Canada. The gold had come from Valcambay, one of the largest precious metal refineries in the world. Each bar was 99.9% pure gold, nearly 400 kilograms in total. Alongside the gold was another shipment, foreign currency worth $2.7 million. Everything had followed strict security protocols. At least, that was the expectation, because just a few hours after the plane landed, the entire shipment vanished. No armed robbery, no smashed doors, no hijacked truck. Instead, investigators were left with a disturbing question. How do you steal one of the largest gold shipments in Canadian history from one of the busiest airports in North America without breaking a single lock? Because somewhere inside that system, someone already knew the answer. Welcome to the Heist Vault. Behind every heist there is a story. Some end in prisons, some end in graves, and some simply disappear. The gold didn't originate in Canada. It began its journey in Switzerland, one of the world's largest hubs for precious metals. Two separate Swiss companies had arranged shipments to Canada. One of them was Valcambay, a major precious metals refinery known for producing investment-grade gold bars. They prepared 660 gold bars for shipment, together weighing 400 kilograms. At the time of the shipment, the gold was worth around 24 million Canadian dollars. But according to later analysis, based on global gold prices that day, the actual value may have been closer to $34 million. And as gold prices climbed afterward, that same shipment would eventually be worth over $40 million. The second shipment came from Raiffeisen Schweiz, a Swiss retail bank. They were shipping foreign currency to a Canadian bullion exchange, worth about $2.7 million. Brinks, Switzerland handled the logistics. Their job was simple: move the valuables securely from Switzerland to their destination in Canada. To do that, they arranged air transport with Air Canada. On April 17, 2023, Air Canada Flight AC-881 departed Zurich Airport. The aircraft was a Boeing 777-300ER, one of the largest planes in Air Canada's fleet. Inside its cargo hold sat a small but incredibly valuable container. It occupied just 0.46 square meters of space, about the size of a small suitcase. But inside were gold bars, foreign currency, and tens of millions of dollars in value. The flight crossed the Atlantic without incident. Hours later, the aircraft landed at Toronto Pearson International Airport. Time of arrival: 3:56 p.m. Everything seemed routine. Airport crews unloaded cargo from the plane. Among the containers was the Brinks shipment. It was transported to an Air Canada cargo holding facility, where it would wait for pickup. At 5:50 p.m., the container arrived at the storage facility. From there, a Brinks armored truck would eventually collect it. That was the plan. But someone else had a different one. At 6:32 p.m., a truck arrived at the cargo facility. A 5-ton vehicle. The driver approached staff and handed them paperwork. It looked legitimate. A shipping label. Airport employees reviewed the document. Everything appeared normal. The paperwork indicated the shipment was ready for pickup. So staff followed standard procedure. Using a forklift, they loaded the container onto the truck. The truck driver signed the paperwork, then calmly drove away. No alarms. No security confrontation. No suspicion. Just another cargo pickup. Except, the document was fake. Investigators later discovered the truth. The paperwork used in the heist was a forged shipping document, but it wasn't completely fabricated. It had been copied from a real label, originally used for a shipment of seafood. That shipment had been collected from the same facility one day earlier. Someone had taken that document, altered it, and printed a new version. But here's the part investigators found most disturbing. The forged document had been printed inside the Air Canada cargo facility itself, on one of the facility's own printers, meaning whoever created it had access to the building and understood the system. After leaving the cargo facility, the truck drove away from the airport. It traveled along Dixon Road, then merged onto Highway 401, one of the busiest highways in North America. From there, the truck exited toward a rural area near Milton, Ontario, and disappeared. A few hours later, the real Brinks truck arrived at the cargo facility. They had come to collect the shipment, but when staff went to retrieve the container, it wasn't there. At first, they assumed it had been moved or misogged, but as employees searched the facility, a realization began to spread. The gold was gone. At 2:43 a.m. the next morning, the theft was finally reported to PO Regional Police. What investigators discovered next would turn the case into the largest gold heist in Canadian history. Within days, police launched a major investigation. PO Regional Police took the lead, but they were soon joined by another agency, the U.S. Bureau of Alcohol, Tobacco, Firearms and Explosives. The investigation was given a name, Project 24K, a reference to 24-karat gold, and the search began. Investigators examined airport security footage, cargo facility access logs, employee records, truck registrations, and potential organized crime connections. What they discovered suggested something troubling. This robbery had not been random. It had been carefully planned. One detail quickly stood out: the forged document. It had been printed inside the cargo facility, which meant someone inside the system had likely helped. Investigators began examining Air Canada employees, looking for unusual behavior, access patterns, or suspicious connections. Eventually, they identified several suspects, including individuals who worked at the airport itself. Police believed the robbery had been organized by a criminal syndicate, and according to investigators, at least 2 Air Canada employees had been involved. The crime wasn't just an outside operation, it had inside access. The gold bars themselves created another problem. Unlike cash, gold can be melted down. Once melted, the serial numbers disappear. The metal can be reshaped into new bars or jewelry, making it almost impossible to trace. Police later discovered gold melting equipment connected to suspects. Investigators believe some of the gold had been melted. Other portions may have been transported overseas. Possible destinations included Dubai and India, 2 major global gold markets. If that happened, the gold could have been sold and melted within days, erasing any trace of the original shipment. Almost exactly 1 year later, on April 17, 2024, police announced major developments: multiple arrests, 19 criminal charges, and several suspects still on the run. Among those charged were Durante King McLean, the alleged driver of the getaway truck; Parmpal Sidhu, an Air Canada employee; Archit Grover, owner of the getaway vehicle; and several others accused of assisting the operation. Police also discovered something else. Some suspects were allegedly connected to illegal firearms trafficking. During a traffic stop in Pennsylvania, authorities found 65 firearms in a rental car linked to one suspect. Despite the arrests, Most of the gold remained missing. Police recovered about $430,000 in cash, gold jewelry worth around $89,000, and equipment capable of melting gold. But compared to the original shipment, that was almost nothing. Investigators also seized documents showing how the proceeds were divided. One list showed $10.23 million distributed among participants. Another showed $9.94 million, which suggested the gold had already been converted into cash and spread across the network. By mid-2024, the investigation itself had become extremely expensive. Peel Regional Police reported spending $5.3 million on the case, and they expected the total cost to reach $10 million before the investigation ended, all to track a shipment that had vanished in less than an hour. The heist triggered another conflict, this one in court. Brinks demanded compensation from Air Canada. They argued the airline had failed to protect the shipment. According to the lawsuit, there were no proper security protocols in place. Brinks claimed the facility lacked secure vault storage, adequate surveillance, and sufficient monitoring. Air Canada disagreed. They argued Brinks had failed to properly declare the shipment's value under international shipping rules that limited the airline's liability. In the end, the court ruled largely in Air Canada's favor. Their financial responsibility was capped at around 18,000 Canadian dollars for a shipment worth tens of millions. Even after arrests, even after a massive investigation, the central mystery remains. Those bars could now exist anywhere. Inside jewelry, inside new bullion, or hidden inside private collections. Once gold is melted, its history disappears. And so does the evidence. The Toronto Pearson heist didn't involve violence. No guns. No masks. No dramatic escape. Instead, it relied on something far more dangerous. Knowledge of the system. A forged document. A truck. And a few minutes of trust. One small container. Less than half a square meter. And yet, inside it was one of the largest gold thefts in Canadian history. Millions vanished. And somewhere in the world, those gold bars may still exist. Just no longer in the shape they were when they left Switzerland. Welcome to the Heist Vault. Behind every vault, there is a weakness. Sometimes it's steel. Sometimes it's routine. And sometimes, it's a piece of paper no one thought to question.